go, and I will go.
Go.
All right. It is Friday, November 9th. I'm Renee Ritchie, and we have new iPads Pro, new MacBooks Air, and new Macs Mini. And yes, like attorneys general, I'm sticking with that pronunciation because this is the iMore Show. Joining me today, we have the illustrious Mother of Dragons, the Queen of Time, and the commander of the Northern Starfleet, Lori Gill. How are you, Lori?
I think I'm just going to start tacking on all of these other words that you have for me and just add that to my already long list of names.
Every week it gets a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Well, that's the voice. Now, I should have saved some of them for Georgia, because I could have said like Georgius Dallas, commander of the Northern Guard, general of the Steppes, father to a murdered iPad, mother to a, and this life for the next, she will have her revenge. No, that was Maximus Aurelius. Sorry, I'm confusing people again.
I thought that was me.
How are you doing, Georgia?
I'm good.
Good. So we have new things. We have new stuff.
We have new things. So let's go. Let's start with, we either start with the most popular one so that people can listen to that right up front and then stop the podcast, or we start with the least popular one and force people to listen through the entire
Or just
podcast.
skip ahead. They'll just skip it. They'll be like, skip 15 seconds, still Mac Mini, skip 15 seconds. Oh no, but they love it. So you can't say that, because
I want to hear the one. I want to know the one that is least loved. Is it the Mac Mini? Is that the one?
No, because the people who love it so hard.
Yeah, and I would argue that it's not the least loved, but it probably is the least popular. Fair. And that's why I used those words very specifically. Popular.
Yes. Georgia, you're not my least loved child. You're just the least popular child.
Well, you're a bit of a jerk. Your parents love you, but the neighbors not so much.
Fair. It's just
if you'd stop digging up the flowers, Mac Mini, then maybe more people would like you.
Let's go in the middle. How's this? So new MacBook Air. Apple has not updated the MacBook Air in many years. Famously, Steve Jobs pulled it out of a manila envelope in 2008. And it was weird. Like, it had one port in a Millennium Falcon landing gear sort of style. And it was $1,799 to buy it. And I had one. And it was...
Let's stop for just a minute.
Yes.
Repeat the cost of that.
$1,799 for the basic configuration with an iPod style hard drive. That wasn't even the SSD version, which was more. And I think I had the SSD version because I don't trust those tiny hard drives. And then in 2011, they created the new iconic wedge-shaped MacBook Air, which was then copied by Intel and every PC vendor. And it was literally Ultrabook 0, like patient zero, but for Ultrabooks, and the infection spread across the industry, and everything looked like a MacBook Air. And that was originally $1,299, but over succeeding years, it dropped down until finally it got to $999 right before Apple stopped updating it, about 3.5, 4 years ago. And so last week at the Apple event, I believe the first thing they announced, it was right up front at the event, was the new MacBook Air. And it looks like, to use Steve Jobs' parlance, it looks like a 12-inch MacBook hooked up with an original with the second edition MacBook Air, and it's still wedge-shaped, but it has a lot of the design cues from the 12-inch, including Retina display. It's not bezel-less. They didn't delete the bezels, but they've gone to the new style black bezels, and it's very similar keyboard. It's got a little more space on the side for speakers, and it's got Touch ID, but no touch bar. And I guess the most controversial part of it is that it's not running a full Intel U-series CPU the way the MacBook Pro is and the way the previous Air is, but it's running an Intel Y-series, which is closer to what the the 12-inch MacBook runs. So, and only one configuration, I believe. You can only get the i5 Core Y Amber Lake. I was wrong. Last week I said Whiskey Lake, but that's it's actually Amber Lake.
It is Amber Lake. Okay.
Yeah. So much to decompress, Lori.
Yeah, and don't forget the Force Touch trackpad. That's new on the MacBook Air too. So, first off, it's gorgeous. I love it.
Yes.
I'm reading the specs on it, and I think this is. I shouldn't have got the MacBook Pro, because this is actually the computer for me, because it is powerful enough for everything I need, but not overly powerful. I don't do a lot of video editing or music creation or anything like that. I don't do any of that on a MacBook. So this is actually the perfect in between for me. And it's light and it's beautiful and it comes in gold. So you've had about a week with it now, Renee?
Yes.
And have you tried using it as your main driver for a while, including video uploads and things like that?
So I can do all, and it's very similar to the previous Air in that I can do everything that I need to do on it. It just, if the minute you hit that render button, it's not like go get a cup of coffee. It's like go drive to the coffee shop, sit there for half the day, and then come back. Especially because I'm doing 4K video now. I used to be slow at 1080p video. At 4K video, I am so used to the top, and I've been spoiled because I've been using the top end 15-inch MacBook Pro with a Core i9 and like just all the cores, and it doesn't do real time, but it's fast. And the MacBook Air, I can edit all the video I want, but I got to go on a small staycation when it renders it. Our CEO Marcus, he ordered one, and he actually sent it back because I have the lowest end MacBook 12-inch, the M3. And it's fast compared to that, but he had the highest end, the M7, and he said the performance is about the same, and the MacBook 12-inch is just so much smaller. Like it's instead of like throwing it in your bag, you can throw it in a non-hipster jean back pocket. He likes the portability more.
I love that. I'm such an Air person. Like I love it. Like I like my MacBook. I'm not gonna lie. Like that's now my computer to go to. Plus it's pink, but but at work I use my like 2011, it's old now, 2011 MacBook Air, like old school, like wedge shape design, like, but I love it. I still have warm, happy feelings when it like slowly starts up and then slowly goes from one page to another, web page to another. Maybe I'm not that happy about that. I think
yours is an i5, right? Like you have the middle one.
Oh, I really don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think yours. I remember yours being an M. Yeah. So I mean, like at the top end, the MacBook and the MacBook and the Air are now comparable, but you're still paying a premium for the MacBook because it is smaller and it is ultimate portability, and it has like terraced batteries and expensive parts in it. But if you don't need that tiny size, you can save some money and get just as good performance on the MacBook Air now. Which doesn't like it is tinier. Like I thought the MacBook Air was small. Then I took out my 12-inch. I'm like, no, that's so tiny and cute.
It's amazing what 1 inch will do for you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
it is.
It sounds like what you're saying is the 12-inch MacBook is basically the highest end 12-inch MacBook is basically the same thing, performance-wise.
It's a generation behind, but it's a processor class up, so it ends up, I think, being even.
Okay.
So it is using KB Lake and not Amber Lake, but it's a faster version of that KB Lake. So
if somebody's trying to decide on a laptop from Mac that they should buy, it's not necessary when it comes to these two, the MacBook and the MacBook Air. I guess okay, so it's $100 cheaper for the bottom of the line MacBook. Or sorry, it's $100 cheaper for the bottom of the line MacBook Air versus the MacBook. But you're also getting a more, like, you can upgrade to a faster processor.
Yeah, so the way I'd look at it is like this. The MacBook, and it's just the branding is so confusing. I think Apple should have, when they first dropped the MacBook Air to $999, they should have just renamed it MacBook and let the new one come in as the Air, because that would be way less confusing. But to look at it like this, if you just want a MacBook, then get the MacBook Air. If you're willing to pay extra for maximum portability, then get the 12-inch MacBook. If you're willing to pay extra for maximum performance, then get the Pro. So you have the middle, maximum portability, and maximum performance.
Yep, that's a great way to do that. So for anybody they're just not sure which Mac lineup they want, that's Renee just solved it for you. Now go buy.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad they updated it. But now see, like the 12-inch MacBook doesn't have the Touch ID, and they finally got Touch ID on the MacBooks when they're getting rid of it on the iPhone. It's so weird. We're still waiting on Face ID Max. Anyway, Face ID R Max next year maybe. Let's start that whole rumor.
How does the I don't mean how does it work, but how is the performance of Touch ID on the MacBook Air? I've got it on MacBook Pro, it's the single most important thing added to a computer, period, in my opinion, for convenience sake. And the security, I mean, obviously a strong password is just as secure, or in some circumstances more secure, but being able to just
type it in.
Right. So there's the convenience balance there. It's not less secure, but it's not necessarily more secure. Being able to just touch the wake button on the MacBook Air for me is just amazing to be able to unlock my computer. How
is it faster for you, Lori, than say using your watch to be able to open up things? And so because of that, you're like, you can go right away, and you're like that. It saves you those seconds. It is a little annoying.
So yeah, so there's it's amazing how they do, like, just like Renee said, they race they race each other for speed of getting in. But I think literally the amount of time that it takes my finger to reach the button gives my watch the advantage. But I'm not always wearing my Apple Watch. So having that.
Why are you not always wearing your Apple Watch?
I don't have a good justification for that. Okay. I'm going to look like a bad
also,
person.
I find sometimes, like, if you raise the lid or you do something over it, the Apple Watch knows to trigger. But sometimes you're just like, the screen has just gone off and your Apple Watch doesn't know to wake it up, and then you hit Touch ID.
Yep.
Yeah, like the Apple Watch seems to need more cues. And it's so fast. Like, Face ID would be the ultimate solution here. They just haven't. They've just gotten it to the iPad, so it'll take another year or so to get into the first Macs. But you're already typing. Your fingers are there, and that makes it just so fast to hit Touch ID. And the only real difference here is that with the MacBook Pro, they had a touch bar, and the touch bar was connected on a hardware level with Touch ID, so that they could make sure no one ever lied to you about a price. It would say the price right next to the Touch ID strip, and it would say $99. You knew it was $99. So they had to go and re-architect that for the MacBook Air because there's no Touch ID strip. So what they did is created a hardware, direct hardware encrypted connection between the macOS display and the Touch ID to verify the price. And if ever anything cannot be verified, it switches off Touch ID and makes you use your iPhone or iPad to authenticate instead. Because it's like, we can't trust this. They might be scamming you. We're going to force you to do it on your iPhone.
Wow, that's brilliant. I was going to ask you, what are some differences without the touch bar? And you just, wow. So let's say I'm visiting some website that's kind of an unknown, and they're selling this, vintage horror t-shirt that I've always wanted, and it's $150, and somewhere in the ether of the internet there might have been some musings that this particular website is fraudulent. They have been tagged or flagged somewhere across the way. So when you're using Touch ID on the MacBook Air, if Safari can't confirm that this is the right price, that they're not secretly charging you twice as much or something like that, it'll just say no.
Yeah, it'll do what it did. It'll do what it does on a MacBook that has no Touch ID and make you use your iPhone or iPad or Apple Watch to authenticate. And that's true too if you want to boot into Linux. So you go and you turn off system integrity protection and boot authentication. It can no longer tell if maybe there's a man in the middle or person in the middle attack. So it'll just turn off Touch ID for that. You can still use it to unlock the machine, but it'll turn it off for payment processing and make you do it on your. So basically, if in doubt, chicken out is the whole philosophy here.
Yeah, that's great. That's a nice little added level of protection that I don't think any of us thought of. So
the other thing that's super cool is that they're using, so the T2 chip, I believe, Apple's never said this, but I believe it's the A10 Fusion chip from iPhone 7. And it's got an image signal processor, which they have talked about, which lets it do better exposure on the webcam, but whatever. It also has encode and decode hardware blocks. So on the Mac Mini, which we'll get to in a sec, but on the MacBook Air, it does render, like I said, it renders video slow. It does, but it renders it way faster than the Intel chip could on its own, because anything that Intel is less than great at, Apple just shoots to their basically iOS chip inside the Mac and says, you handle it. We're not going to wait.
So if you're doing a lot of video processing, this would not be the Mac for you.
No, this is again for portability.
Not be the Mac you're looking for.
Like if you're doing like a family movie, an iMovie, like you got home, you took all the surf footage, you threw it in, you want to share it with your friends. Yeah, if you're editing the new episode of Star Wars, no. You've got your Mac, you've got your iMac Pro in your giant backpack already.
Right.
So talk about anything not involving photo or video or audio editing? What about just taking it out to the coffee shop and writing your 5,000 word review?
Oh yeah, you're laughing. You're laughing. It's amazing. It's amazing. The MacBook Airs have always been that. They've been the de facto blogger computers. And I know some people, some people like what Microsoft doing with Surface. Some people like what Google's doing with the Chromebook. But I'd argue, like, if Mac OS is your thing, if that's because it's got its very own distinct workflows, this is still the ultimate sort of blogger, writer, student, first time entry level, everything. Apple had a nice line for it, and I hate quoting Apple lines because sometimes they sound so markety, but their line is like, this is just the perfect Mac for everybody to take around and do what they have to do every day. I think that really is what they tried to make with this, just like the perfect everyday MacBook.
Yeah.
You're not giving up too much for portability, not giving up too much for power. You just got it's the Goldilocks.
Yeah. I definitely need the MacBook Air. And I mean, even when they first announced it, I was like, oh, good, they updated the MacBook Air, whatever. Laptop-wise, I have only ever owned a MacBook Pro. And now I'm thinking,
it's just
maybe
so
I
light.
don't need a MacBook Pro.
It's so light. You carry it around and you don't know that you're carrying them around. That's just so lovely. Like, I fully understand if I was wanting to do, I guess, a lot of, I don't do a lot of video editing. I do like Photoshop work, but I don't really like, but it's so nice to be able to have it with you always. It's really like carrying your iPad, but it's not your iPad. I'll say it better. But again, depending on what you use it for, especially with the new pencil, I'm going far ahead.
Yeah, no, that was the whole point of it. Yeah. Steve Jobs walked into the office, dropped an iPad in front of the MacBook team and said, why can't you do that? And that led to the MacBook Air. Yeah. So, and some people were like, so the other thing that was really annoying with some of the coverage is that it's not a laptop, like talking about the MacBook Air, right? Talking about the iPad Pro, which again, we'll get to in a minute. It's not a laptop replacement. It was not meant to be. The fact that Apple announced the new MacBook Air at the same show as the iPad Pro is the biggest indicator they could give you that it is not a laptop replacement. If you want a laptop, they have the MacBook Air for you, and they will gleefully sell you as many as you want.
Yeah, and that being said, just in general, there are a lot of people who don't use a computer, who use an iPad. So no, it's not a laptop replacement, but yes, it is the device that most people would prefer over a laptop because they don't need some of the things that any kind of laptop comes with. Most people, when they're at home, they're checking their emails, they're surfing the web, they're looking at their Facebooks, maybe they're printing something. All of this, that you can do all of it on an iPad. You can type up reports. There's a handful of things that you can't do on an iPad that most people at home don't need to do.
Yeah, it was a really good.
I have one of the therapists that work there does all of her notes with the pencil on her iPad, and then she can store them. She always has access to them, and because it's just kind of flat, just like our usual paperwork is flat, it also doesn't have that part that's coming up that kind of disrupts that I'm using a laptop in front of you, and so people don't mind to that. And loves it. Like, if she needs to do anything, it's at her fingertips. It's securely on hers. She doesn't have to worry about it. And people react very nicely to that. If I was using a laptop while I took notes and I took it on the going through that, I think that people would be a little bit offended by that or find that it kind of disrupts the flow of therapy because there's this little bit of a wall that's between both of us. So you're absolutely right. It definitely carries a niche where a laptop doesn't.
Yeah, and I think that slide that Apple put up a slide showing how many iPads sold compared to how many laptops from other vendors sold. And I think people misread that as saying, oh, look, Apple is saying it's a laptop alternative. But the way to read that slide, in my opinion, is look how many people are not interested in a laptop, or feel like a laptop's not for them, or it's alien, or it's inaccessible, or it's inapproachable, or it's overhead, or Unix file systems, or Windows file, whatever. And they were just happy to buy an iPad instead. And it's awkward for Apple to say that because they also sell laptops. But the read to me there is that the laptop market is like this nerdy computer thing still, or people who think they have to buy it. And then all these other people are getting into computing through an iPad instead.
Yeah, well, even for my mom, like it was just even opening it up and turning it on. was a difficulty. And then to have to type because she doesn't type, that was a difficulty. To be able to just press a button, tap something, and then use something she already knows how to use, which would be like just a stylus, like a pencil. She understands that, and that was really easy. So I think that there's less barrier to entry with an iPad than there is to a laptop. And for kids in school, the exact same thing. It's just really easy. You get to move things with your fingers like you would. You need to open them, close them. It's really intuitive, and you can't really mess it up. You can, but it's really hard. You have to work really hard to mess it up.
Right.
So.
There's not like this access to your like code on an iPad that you could accidentally delete. Yeah, it's much harder.
The baggage. Like as much as I love the Mac, you have to like it grew up through Unix and terminal and file systems and all these things that were like what a bunch of nerdy computer scientists thought, like from vacuum tubes and punch cards through all of this. It grew up to be this, but it didn't have to be this. And an iPad sort of washes that away and says, and it's got its faults. I think that it should absolutely have, like, you should be able to plug in a USB drive, and instead of showing you a file system, it should show you File Picker, which is like Photo Picker for files, and it already has that there, and it just won't do it. And that's super frustrating. And you should never know what, like, people say it doesn't handle zips. You should not have to care. It should just get a zip file and say, oh, look, there's a bunch of stuff in here for you, and just give it to you. And if you have to send files, oh, you're sending a bunch of files. Let's just do that. And like, I should not have to know what a zip file is, and it doesn't do that. And so I think there are places where it fails, but not because it's not being enough like a computer, but just because it's not doing its damn job.
Well, I think they'll get there too. I think that, the iPad is still, as much as it's been around for a long time, it's still in its infancy. It's still, I guess, let's call it a toddler. So it's still, has a ways to go in, like, if you compare to how much computer technology has advanced, I think the iPad is on track to like be everything anyone has ever wanted it to be. Just it needs a couple more years.
We'll see. I mean, Apple divides its attention. iPhone gets continued attention, and iPad seems to get alternate attention. So it takes longer than it might otherwise. Like if they were only an iPad company, I think we would have gotten there a long time ago.
Well, again, it's just, people will update their phone every year or two versus there is no, there isn't an every year iPad, system of being able to just put some money away and you get a new iPad, because people can use it for many, many years. Like, we don't buy an iPad. We don't even think about buying an iPad every single year. The phone, it's always a decision that I want to use because I use it all the time. Though my husband uses his iPad absolutely every single day. That is his go-to machine. And it's huge and heavy because he has it with like the Logitech keyboard thing attached. I think it's the Logitech one. I might be wrong. But he loves it. And I'm like, okay. Like, I just let him go. I'm like, okay. Uses his pencil, writes his notes.
That was the other point of confusion, is that it's got such a powerful chipset. People are like, oh, it benchmarks as fast as a MacBook Pro, but Apple must mean it to be a replacement for the MacBook Pro. But again, I think it's the same as the iPhone. Apple does give you that headroom. Like if you want to run augmented reality games, or you want to do really intense photo filters or photo manipulation. But for most people, all that means is that you can get updates for the next 5 years and still be able to run them well. Like the iPhone 5S can run iOS 12 fine. And Lisa Jackson especially, who's Apple's head of environmental and social policy, she's made it her point to say that Apple has to make devices last as long as possible, because one of the best ways to recycle is to keep something in use. So if you have to throw away your phone after a year, that's horrible. If you can get 5, and even if you hand it down, it's not you personally, because you're an early adopter tech person, but you buy the new iPhone, you give the other one to your family, or you sell it or something. You buy the new iPad, and either you hold on to it for 5 years, or it gets sold once or twice, that it still is usable and runs well on iOS 16 is a huge thing for Apple now. And that's why they're putting all they can to make the chipsets as fast as they can to hedge against the future as much as they can.
Definitely. So let's talk in detail about iPad Pro.
Your new precious?
My new precious.
What do you think, Laurie?
Look at that beautiful edge. For anybody who's not watching and listening, I'm showing that flat, gorgeous edge that reminds me of the iPhone SE, which is my favorite.
Oh, that is true. That is true. It
I'm
brings
loving
you
it.
back.
Balancing it again. It is perfectly balanced as all things in life should be.
That scares me, Renee.
I wanted to show
on one finger, which is frightening to me.
Is which?
That's why
is that the 11?
This is the 12.
Is that the 11 or the 12.9?
12.9.
And you were balancing that on your finger.
Yeah, I think people think it feels so light because it is so well balanced.
Yeah.
So you got the 11-inch, Lori?
So I got the 11-inch, and I wanted to make a quick comparison between that and the 9.7-inch. I did not get the 10.5-inch, but so the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, the 11-inch iPad Pro is just a tiny bit bigger, both on the side and on the top, but weight-wise, it's about exactly the same. Maybe the 9.7-inch iPad Pro may be a tiny, tiny bit heavier ounce-wise, but it's insignificant. And the screen itself, let's not show you my text messages that I'm getting right now. The screen itself is huge. It's significantly larger.
That's like really significantly larger.
Here's the old 12-inch compared to the old 12.9-inch compared to the new 12.9-inch.
Unfortunately, you can't see it with the difference in bezel. Like you can look onto the side and you can see the difference of usable space in the bezeling, though it looks like there's more screen than there is because
look at how much smaller the 2018 model is, significantly smaller.
And the screen is the same size. That's the crazy part. They deleted so much bezel.
That is amazing. I do love the 12.9. I love that it's basically a laptop. And I think I mentioned this before that I ordered the 11-inch because I wanted something smaller. But now that I've seen what the 2018 12.9-inch looks like, that one is a smaller version, but the screen size is just as big. So it's fantastic.
I think I mentioned this, right? Like people at the event were like, can I see the smaller one? And can I see the bigger one? That is the bigger one, yo.
Yo. Georgia?
I have to say, it was beautiful to use. Like really.
I barely got it back. She took it for so long.
Well, then I just started drawing because using the pencil also was lovely. I had to work a little bit on the tap thing. I still would love if I could just flip it over and erase. I'm still requesting that. But also the pencil felt great. Like it just felt smooth and you're going over it and it was just so exciting to be able to use.
The finish, it's weird.
It's a matte like finish, right?
Yeah, it's a matte kind of soft. It feels really much softer in your hands. It doesn't feel as slippery or that it's going to fall out. You don't have the little end piece that's going to, you don't have to plug it in where you want to like rip it now, bend it off, which was good for me. I loved it. I really enjoyed using it. It was really fast. You draw and it just immediately is happening exactly on the screen. And I love that it just magnetically sticks on the side, which we were asking for, I don't know, years ago.
It does, and now it does. You can still knock it off. Yeah.
Well,
or it sometimes gets knocked off in your bag.
Can that happen, Renee?
I've already lost a pencil.
Like lost?
Yeah, I was reviewing it and I was so tired and I was just moving. Like I went through, I did camera and video tests in the woods. How many days without
sleep did this happen before this though?
I think I hadn't slept much in like 3-4 days, but I was outside in the woods because it doesn't have optical image stabilization, which we can talk about in a bit. And I wanted to see how different that would be if I was just filming walking in the woods. So I took it out. I filmed a little bit at your place, I filmed at my place.
Yeah.
I filmed all over. And I took the pencil off to do a bunch of things, and then I just could never find it again.
It's gone. Someone's going to be gifted for the holidays a new Apple Pencil.
But the thing is, like, it will stay on, and I've seen people doing like fidget spinner things with it, which is awesome. Like you can just put it on and totally. Can I do it now?
Really?
Will I lose it? Will I put my eye out?
You're gonna lose it. Be careful.
Spin it.
Like this.
Let me see it.
Fidget spinning it.
Let me see it.
Whoop! No, see, I'm gonna lose it. I can't do it. But other people are fidget spinning it, and they're using it as a refrigerator magnet, which is awesome. But yeah, you can knock it off, and it gets knocked off in bags.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's silly for anybody to assume that just a little magnetic no offense, Renee, if you thought that was going to be the case.
Roy wasn't speaking to you directly, though, Renee.
But no, that's fair. I feel like that's fair.
Magnets aren't a permanent connector.
No.
I mean, that
Yeah.
like
And you
that's
don't
just
want to have such a strong magnet that it's going to be dangerous to have near other technology.
Well, my thing is like, because people will just put the cover on and then walk with it. And so I've made it a, whoop, I'm losing it again.
yeah.
I'm,
See, it just popped right off.
I'm making it a point to now. I grab it by this because this side is open.
That seems dangerous as well. I'm a little nervous with you holding it, like single palming. It's there for while you work, but it is not really there as much for transport. Be careful.
Yeah. Still pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say get a nice pencil case.
Ooh, do you have a nice pencil case for it?
But then where do you have to put the pencil case then in the bag?
Right, but if you're putting your iPad in your bag with the pencil connected to it with magnets, just toss it in a case instead.
Right.
And then when you're working, you
can then put it there so you don't, when you're not using it, you put it back on top and it stays beautifully.
Yeah.
Yet. Now, do either of you have something to hold your iPad on while you're working? Do you work with it in your lap? What is your mode of use?
I just use the case. I just use a keyboard case.
You use the keyboard case. Okay.
I have not invested in any kind of cases just yet. I think today I'm probably going to go get the Apple Smart Keyboard. But this is 12 South's Compass Pro.
Cool.
They just released it. It's for the Pro model. It's a little sturdier and has multiple angles now instead of, I think it used to have 2 and now it has 3. So you can lay it down low angled. You can have it at kind of like 45, no, not 45. I don't know my angles. Kind of a lower rest, or you can have the tall rest. So literally right now, while I'm sitting around at my computer, I just rest my MacBook Pro, or sorry, my iPad Pro on the Compass Pro from 12 South. And it's amazing. And this is my favorite part about it, is that it's intended to be very mobile.
Portable.
So this is
That
it.
looks like a weapon, Lori. It looks like you could defend yourself with that.
That's true.
I might have to pull it out of my bag when I go through the airport.
You look like a Ninja Turtle.
You see, my favorite one is this one for me, but they sent it to me. I love it. I remember reviewing it. It fits up so you can fit your phone, you can put your iPad, they don't have any, I don't know who it's by anymore because they didn't put it on it. So I can't even, I love it.
You can't even go get another one.
I just use this thing, the Smart Keyboard cover.
Yeah,
Very nice.
So I've never had a Smart Keyboard cover or case or anything like that from Apple. I usually go with Logitech because I love Logitech. And Renee, you and I can have disagreements on their typing experience, which I think is absolutely phenomenal.
No, see, I'm keyboard agnostic. I can type on anything. That's the worst thing about me. I said this in my review. I'm like Fortnite. Drop me on a keyboard, and within like 5 minutes, I'm just playing.
True. You've liked even some of the worst of keyboards, and you don't notice. I think
the only keyboards I don't like are
fast.
the only keyboards I don't like are the old style, like cherry, like the ones the nerds love, frankly, the big cherry key.
The mechanical keyboards. Yeah.
Georgia has a son who thinks every computer keyboard is stupid, and he has an old-fashioned typewriter with like the arms that go click, 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 and that's what
he actually does have a keyboard. But you see, this one's just too loud. It just makes too much noise. So
I have that, but in space.
It's just click. It's just loud.
I don't mind that one.
Headphones.
It's just I have so
if I'm
many
doing a
hand
podcast, it's.
I have so many hand injuries that I don't like. I don't like to have a lot of travel because it literally hurts. So when I have low travel, it's much easier on my repetitive stress injury.
Yeah, and Renee, I agree with you. I just don't like mechanical keyboards. They're not a comfortable type for me at all. I know if you're a fan of a mechanical keyboard, you are a diehard mechanical keyboard user, and I get that, but it's not for me.
Like Gruber has Apple extended keyboards too in the freezer, I think, for the apocalypse.
So why would someone want to get or have the new iPad? What would be the features that you would say that people could look forward to, or when should they upgrade it? Lori, I'll throw it to you first because
Face ID.
Got it.
Face ID, Face ID, Face ID. So I did this thing. I'm not saying that I recommend this. I'm not going to say do this, but I turned off attention awareness. Required attention. I want to make sure I use the right terminology for the feature. Face ID by default, you actually have to be looking directly at the device when you want to enable it. Your eyes can't be looking a different direction. On my phone,
look straight towards the camera-ish.
It just has to be looking at the device. It does not have to look at the camera. It could be looking at the bottom of the screen. Well, I guess if it's really low, it might look like your eyes are closed, but you don't have to look right at the camera. You just have to be looking at the device. On my phone, I have it turned on. It's on by default. That's how it comes. And I think that it adds that just little extra bit of security and protection that I need, so that, for example, if somebody steals my phone, they can't just like from a distance hold it up at my face and suddenly they can unlock it. I don't know that that is even a possibility, but that's why I have it turned on.
I think I'm turning it off right now.
What's that, Georgia?
On iPad Pro,
yeah,
you can have it laying down flat on your table, and you don't have to fully lift it up to turn on, to unlock your iPad Pro with Face ID. If you don't have required attention on, you can just kind of lean your face forward and it does it. It unlocks it for you. And for the purposes of the iPad Pro, I actually think it's a better way to use Face ID because
I'm turning it off. I'm turning off now required attention for Face ID on my phone because you know what? Yeah.
Well, when your kids,
it sounds horrible. But I don't care if they use my they have their own tech, like they can't use tech during the week. So they're not touching my phone. They're not going to grab my phone. They're not going to use my phone. So I'm going to turn off required attention. It's like,
on the iPad, on the iPad and the iPhone. So all of this is governed by physics, the physics of the lens. So if the camera can see you, it will unlock. The only thing the attention does is it'll look for an act like your eyes to be open. So like if someone just holds it up while you're sleeping, it won't unlock because your eyes aren't open. So that's the only thing you're really changing with that. But with the iPad, it's different because it can be in any orientation. With the iPhone, it's in one orientation, so it knows the way you're going to be looking at it. With the iPad Pro, if it's on the left and your hand's over it, it'll actually say you're covering the lens and put an arrow saying move your hand. If it's upside down, it'll say, can you please look down, because it knows the camera's at the bottom. But if it's on a table, if it's on the left, if it's on the bottom, it's very easy to unlock. If it's on the top, you have to lean a little bit. If it's on the left or right, you might have to shift a little bit just because the camera has to see you. And if you go too far away, it actually says you are too far away. Please come closer because it's not focusing on you anymore.
Yeah, I think I actually like it off. I've now made my phone less secure just because that sounds like a feature to me.
It's just the tiniest bit less secure, and only under very unusual circumstances. Yeah.
Right. So that's very cool. So that's your one feature. Renee, what is it for you for the iPad?
I mean, for me, I never recommend year-over-year upgrades. So if somebody has last year's iPad Pro, you have to really specifically know what you want, including just having the latest, coolest tech on the block in order to upgrade. The differences are like the display. If it's a bigger display on a lighter device in most cases, the processor is much more powerful. It has not just Face ID, but the whole true depth camera system. So you get Animoji and Memoji and front-facing augmented reality.
One of those little things, is anyone using Animoji or Memoji?
You have to, but I mean, it's a whole system that they're built on. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You can like try on different makeups and do there's a whole bunch of augmented reality stuff that you might want.
Georgia, I use Memoji and Animoji all the time.
Every damn day.
Hilarious.
Really?
Oh yeah, I send text messages to my friends. I love FaceTime chatting with my nephew using the poop emoji as my head. He gets such a kick out of it.
You know what? You sold me. That was it. You sold me now, Lori. You're right.
And the only other thing I'll add is that the Apple Pencil is so much better that if that is your primary use case, because it charges in a way that makes you forget it actually has to charge.
Yeah, it's not like sticking out where someone wants to break it off while they walk.
Not just that, it's like you don't ever have to plug it in because the place where you store it charges it. The other one you had to actually plug in to charge. Like you have to remember to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually
always charged.
You lose the little nib that goes over the charging thing, and now you don't have to worry when it's resting, it's charging.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, literally, when you go to bed at night, if you've been using your Apple Pencil for 12 hours straight, I don't know what the battery life of the Apple Pencil is actually.
Nobody does. Like I was asking people, I don't know. I go to get a coffee, I stick the pencil down, I come back, it just keep going because it's always just charging.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's running low? Sorry, I don't
It'll
use
tell you.
my
It gives you a
iPad,
little.
so
It gives you a pop up that says your Apple Pencil battery is low.
Yeah, you
only
get a
when
little
it's low will it
notification.
do that.
Only when it's low, yeah.
Okay.
And oh man, yeah, like I'm so excited. Okay, I pre-ordered my Apple Pencil, but I pre-ordered it a little bit late, like 3 days later, and so it's shipping about a week late, and so I don't actually have the Apple Pencil 2 in my hands at the moment, but I can't wait to. I can't wait for
You're gonna love it.
the
You're gonna
magnetic
love it.
charging. So great, and magnetic connecting too. Renee,
Yeah.
have you? You may not have more than one iPad Pro at your disposal to know about this, but do you know whether, if let's say I had two iPad Pro 2018 in the house, one for myself, one for my partner, and we both shared the pencil, is it really easy for me to connect it magnetically, pair it to my iPad Pro, hand it over to him, he connects it magnetically, pairs it to his iPad Pro? Is it like dual? Can it?
Yes.
Can
So
more than?
it's one iPad per one Apple Pencil, but anytime you put it on the magnetic connector, it pairs with that device. So you can't just hand him the pencil and he starts drawing. You have to hand him the pencil, he'd stick it on top, it'll say Apple Pencil paired, then he'd take it up and start drawing, and then he'd give it
how
back to you,
quick
you'd have
is
to stick
that,
it on
Renee?
top, like a couple seconds.
Wow. Okay, great.
Yeah, you
That's
don't have to
very
go
easy.
into
Everyone can
Bluetooth
think of doing
settings.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
like that.
monogamous, but it switches really fast.
Right. That's fine. I mean, it doesn't have to be two iPad pairing, but the fact that you can pair it so quickly and easily and unpair. So it's not like because it's paired to my iPad Pro, if my partner wants to use the Apple Pencil, it's not going to say, "Oh, you're already paired with another iPad Pro. You can't use this Apple Pencil."
Right.
I like that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. This is good.
Hmm.
So, Mac Mini, Renee.
Yes.
So let me just start by saying I'm basically going to shut up now because I don't know anything about Mac Mini.
Oh,
and
yes, you do. It's so
Georgia, you
cute.
probably have some familiarity with it in more than I do. So here's the thing. I've literally never seen one with my actual eyes. And when Renee did his unboxing review, I thought, oh, it's so much bigger than I realized. I thought it was going to be small, like Apple TV.
Apple TV, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've seen one. I'm further than you that I've seen one.
You have one in the house.
I have one in the house, but really that's the stuff that Anthony does. Which I guess says something to it in that like it just works and I don't have to really worry about it and it just does everything and I'm like just happy it's doing its storage stuff and it's like just it's all like I don't really have to know about it because I don't have to deal with having to fix anything. It just does it.
So Mac Mini originally was introduced by Steve Jobs' $499 switcher machine back in the day when desktops were still the most popular kind of computer because laptops were hella expensive. And it was made as part of Apple's Switch to Mac campaign. So you would bring your own keyboard, mouse, and display, and you would just unplug your beige box from Compaq or whoever and plug in your Mac Mini. And according to Steve, get on with your better life. Over time, Apple improved them until they got up to I think it was 2012, and two things happened. Switchers became switched, but also people started switching to laptops instead because it turned out they did want screens and trackpads and keyboards included, and laptop prices were changing and people were becoming more mobile. So the Mac Mini started to become a machine more for people who wanted tiny servers. And so it got up to a quad core 2 terabyte system. And then Apple downscaled it slightly. And then for 4 years, nothing. And people still loved it. Mac Stadium has racks and racks and racks and racks of Mac Minis set up as servers. And it was just amazing. So they were waiting and waiting and waiting. And I don't know if Apple got distracted with the new Mac, the 12-inch MacBook, the new MacBook Pros, the iMac Pro or whatever, or if they were waiting to make an ARM Mac Mini and then it's not ready yet, or if they were never intending to make another Mac Mini, but people got so upset they just decided they had to make one. I have no idea what it is, but
Renee, can you back up for someone that does not know if they even need a Mac Mini or what is a Mac Mini?
Nobody needs a Mac Mini is not about need. If you need a Mac Mini, you know it. It's basically what it's become is a home theater machine, a home server, a co-located server, a virtual server, mostly used now by developers who just need multiple developer environments, by people who want to run server rooms, want to run home servers, people for whom an Apple TV is not enough because they want to run Kodi or other third-party video software. So it's basically a tiny little headless Mac, and I should go get mine, but it's plugged in over there.
It's like storage. It's got like, and
it's like a little round rect made out of aluminum that has a drive, power, and a crap ton of ports on the back. So you can plug in.
Your computer, your Mac doesn't have a ton of ports, but the Mac Mini does.
It has, well, it lost a couple. It lost the infrared in the front. It lost the digital mini jack. It still has a 3.5 millimeter, but it lost the digital version. And much to my chagrin, it lost the SDHC card reader, which I really like because I make a ton of video. But it still it now has 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports, 2 I think USB-A ports, an HDMI port, and the 3.5 millimeter headset jack, which is still a lot. It's pretty much a full complement of iMac Pro ports on this tiny little machine. But the price went up. It went up from, it was at $599, it went down to $499, and now it's up to $799.
It's like really expensive, yeah.
Yeah, it's much more expensive.
So why is it more expensive, Renee? Can you maybe talk about that? Because you really can't just throw out things like more expensive unless unless it's not better in any way and doesn't deserve to be more expensive. Well, I mean, I think some people are misunderstanding. They want the most advanced technology, but they want it to be at the price point that it was 5-10 years ago with all the new technology. And maybe we can kind of talk about that a little.
Well, there's a whole bunch of different things to measure in there. One is that our expectations of technology are weird. Like, movies cost more than ever, but we've beaten software prices down to nothing. Like, imagine you went to a movie theater and you get to see Star Wars for free with in-theater purchase of a Coke and a popcorn. That's what we've done to software pricing. But everything else gone up. Computer prices, we always want them to be lower, but the price of everything else is like a box of cereal has gone up. So we really have, technology just exists in this weird place because it was new. Like what happened to cars in the industrial age, prices did drop for a long time, and we've got used to it. And there is a segment of the population who just wants to pay what they want to pay, regardless of what it is or what it costs. Like, I charge $400. Doesn't matter what's in it, just charge $400. What Apple's pricing is remarkably consistent with very few outliers. They charge what it costs them plus their ridiculously high but completely consistent margins. So if you look at Apple's financial disclosures, they typically make 30 odd, sometimes higher, 35, whatever, but around that margin. Average retail markup is 55%. So again, like if you buy something at Walmart, Walmart is probably making 55% off of you. But Apple's making about 33% off of you. And they charge the same whether it's in their store or anybody else's store, which sucks for other retailers, but it's very simple model. So whatever this Mac Mini cost them to make, that plus around 30% is what they charge. And it does vary. Like they either will charge more in the beginning and then drop the price to make up for the amount of money they spent making it, or they'll just charge higher. Sorry, they'll charge higher and then drop the price, or they'll start to like mix around with what's inside it to maintain their pricing, and then make better versions of it going forward. All these different things hold true, but what Apple does is they use expensive parts. It's like saying, why is there no $20,000 BMW? It's because there isn't. Why is there no $20,000 Porsche? There isn't. Maybe there should be. Maybe all these companies should be making accessible versions of all their technology for everybody. But we fall into this thing where there are companies that will make zero margin and try to make it up in volume and never do. And there will be companies that charge a premium and are hugely successful. And people who don't want to spend that much money or literally can't will be justifiably or entitledly really upset by that. But the new Mac Mini yes, Apple could have done all these things. Like some people say, well, at that price, it should have more RAM or it should be a lower price. It is what Apple pays for it, plus or minus 30%. And that includes 128 gigabytes of RAM, Intel full U series Coffee Lake processors, i3, i5, i7. It can go up to 2 terabytes of storage, goes up to 64 gigabytes of memory, and you can spec it out to $4,999 or close to it. And the fact that you can spec it out to $5,000, but there's no $500 version of it, I think tells us exactly who Apple understands their customers for this to be.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, definitely. And the the Mac Mini isn't meant for, you know, the person who's looking for a new portable laptop, or maybe even the person who's looking for a desktop computer. You can make a really great desktop computer using the Mac Mini, but you also have to kind of understand how to build a computer by adding all of the little peripherals and things, which you absolutely can do.
Or just run it as like a headless server, in your closet or something. Run
You
your TV.
absolutely, yeah. So it's a niche device for a very specific number of people. So I think that's kind of the key there. Is it's not for everybody, but for the people that it's for, it matters a lot. And it might feel a little bit pricier, but it does come with some advanced technology. Now, Renee, you've mentioned more than once, especially with iPad Air, that you kind of secretly hope that maybe, although MacBook Air launched at $11.99, that maybe it'll drop down to $9.99 over the next couple of years. Do you have a similar hope with Mac Mini, that maybe it'll drop down to $5.99, $6.99 at some point in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it could. One of the things Apple does do is that over time, like the original, again, this is the cheapest launch price for a MacBook Air ever. The other ones launched at $17.99 and $12.99. This one launched at $11.99. I would love to see, I think it'd be great for Apple to have a $999 Mac on the market. I could see this going down. I'm also super interested because Apple's solution for less expensive portables is iOS, because even the new iPad Pro is cheaper than the MacBook Air. And I'd be super interested in an iOS device like a Mac Mini that's not quite an Apple TV, sorry, more than an Apple TV, but not quite a Mac Mini at a much more affordable price. And I wonder if that's maybe what we'll see.
So you're thinking something more like the original Apple TV, which actually you could download things onto it.
Well, it ran time. I mean, that was such a weird little creation, but like think of like a little Apple TV style box, maybe a little bit bigger, but that was meant to be a computer and a server, not meant to be a TV appliance.
Oh, nice. That's something interesting that we can talk about for the next couple of years until it actually happens. Because I swear they're listening to you and they're thinking, I like that. Renee's got a really good idea. Like Apple Pencil too. I think they were listening to Serenity.
Who let them in the labs, damn
it. Well, yeah, we talked about the four amazing new products that Apple launched. That would be the iPad Pro, the Mac Mini, the MacBook Air, and Apple Pencil 2.
Yes.
It's 3 new devices, but Apple Pencil 2 is its own superior new product. So It's important to comment on that. And for clarity, in case anybody's wondering, you cannot use Apple Pencil 2 with the first generation or with any other earlier generation iPad Pro or the 9.7-inch iPad.
Yes.
It's only compatible with the 2018 model iPad Pro.
And vice versa. You can't use the old Pencil with the new Pro either.
Correct. The first generation Apple Pencil does not work with the 2018.
You cannot pair it. You cannot charge it. You are done.
Done. All right.
We lost Georgia.
Today was a great day.
I know, but we lost Georgia.
Yes, she just disappeared. I thought
the
for
internet
a moment
decided they had enough of her.
They cut her off.
So should we say goodbye on her behalf?
Yes, we absolutely should.
You can find her on the rare remote occasions that she still actually deigns to use Twitter at Georgia_Dow. And I'm kind of envious of her ability not to use Twitter many days. You can also find her videos, which helps you deal with the stress of Twitter or any other things, at anxiety-videos.com. Micah Sargent, we believe, is out getting coffee with his chihuahuas. So you can find him at chihuahua.coffee if you really want to see what he's up to today. And also Micah Sargent on the Twitter. What about you, Lori Gill? Where are you?
You can find me at Appaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. And you can find me at Lori Gill at most of the other social things. And you can find me writing all about the new iPad Pro on iMore.
Woohoo! You can find me at Renee Ritchie on social stuff. You can find me at imore.com/vector, or just go to youtube.com/vector show. And I got really long ass video reviews up for all the new products and a bunch of other stuff. So
I highly recommend you take a moment and watch Renee's YouTube review videos for the iPad Pro and Mac Mini and MacBook Air. They're fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura Gill. I want to thank Jim Metzendorf for editing the show. He does a fantastic job. And I want to thank all of you for listening, because you are the smartest, savviest, and frankly, best looking audience in the multiverse.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Have a great day. Goodbye.